Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
Hi guys, and welcome to our first Fool of the Week for 2023. And who better to start us off than our good friend Nick Ferrari. Nick is someone who just can't get his head round the idea of why the likes of the NHS hasn't hired him as a consultant, for brainstorming on their behalf for solutions to all the problems the health service is facing. Well, Nick here believes the NHS doesn't work. Not that it's not functioning now, but that the whole concept is wrong. Yes, have a listen to this.
I'm not sure they've got one. Either party seems to be struggling to come up with an answer to the care system.
Well, can I tell you, the NHS doesn't work. Okay, we need some kind of private insurance system.
Hold on.
We need some kind of private health insurance system. No, you don't. Until 2010, the general feeling of the British public was that the health service, the NHS, was doing a good job. The approval rating of the NHS was pretty high. Now, since 2010, it has declined. Now, what the hell happened in 2010 to convince people that the NHS is not fit for purpose, or needs to be changed, or needs to be reformed, or needs to be scrapped? What happened in 2010? I just don't know. Does anyone know in the comment section what happened in 2010 that changed everything and now people have such a low opinion of the NHS?
No, we do.
The NHS doesn't work because it's given the task of rescuing the privatised care system.
I don't know why you keep saying that. I don't know why. I'm just, honestly, it's nonsense. The NHS doesn't work because the reason there is no other NHS in the world is it's fundamentally flawed. Certain people...
It's fundamentally underfunded to do the task
don't
it's been
talk
asked
rubbish.
to do.
It gets £4 billion a week for the...
Is £4 billion enough? There are two questions here. Is £4 billion a week enough? And the second question is, where does the money go? Because a lot of this £4 billion is going into the private sector within the NHS. So the NHS is not spending all this money for itself. It's spending a lot of this money on the private sector. Does Nick not understand the problem here? He's saying the NHS is broken. It's not functioning. But the problem is twofold. Is the NHS getting the money it needs? Many people will say no. And the other problem is, where is the money going? If the money is going into private companies, then that's a huge problem. It should not be going into private companies. It should be going into the public sector, which it's not.
Love of God, man, how much more money do you want to give it?
You give it whatever money it needs. It's a public service. I've said before, what's the point in having a government if it doesn't look after the education of the next generation and the health of the current generation?
Well,
per head of population, it gets more than
less
France.
Than £400, whatever you said, $4 billion a week?
$4 billion a week. How much more money do we give? We start again.
To pay for the task it's asked to do.
No, we start again. Certain people who are earning a few quid start to take some insurance. Look at how it works in France. Look at how it works in Germany.
Why is there always this attempt to compare? And it's a little bit ironic from Brexiteers. Brexiteers are pointing to France and Germany quite often. The difference between France and Germany and Britain is, in Europe, it's highly regulated. So you do have input from the private sector, okay? But it's deeply regulated. Do you think the Tories are in favour of a highly regulated private sector involvement in the public sector? Anyone think that the Tories support that? So you have a Tory government who's taken over in 2010, who've provided funding for the NHS. I don't think it's been enough because it's not in line with inflation. So you can quote numbers all day long, but if it's not in line with inflation, then it's not enough. And whatever money it is receiving, a lot of that is going into the private sector, and that private sector is continually being unregulated. So there's no point comparing to France and Germany, which are highly regulated, because you have a Tory government who believes in deregulation. You have Brexiteers who believe in deregulation.
Not so sure about the US. Those who can't afford it, of course, we make provisions for them, and that is the. There is no point just trying to patch it up to get through winter, and just think that we'll survive somehow. Because all that will happen, it will come around next winter, and we have now seen that with a sizable crisis, I will give you COVID, and this damn flu bug or cough or cold or whatever you want to call it, it cannot cope. We need to redesign it. There needs to be some kind of policy for those who are at the lower income scale and others, and that is the reality of it.
So the solution from Nick Ferrari is to... Well, we just charge some people money and we don't charge other people money. So we have a private system for people who can pay, and we have a public system for people who can't pay. And the majority of people can't pay. And what we do is we end up with a two-tier society where some people who have money don't have to queue, and people who don't have money will have to wait months or maybe even years to get treatment. As I said, something happened in 2010 that changed everything. And you have Nick Ferrari and others talking about, well, it's the pandemic. No, it started a long time before the pandemic. The waiting times, the number of people on waiting lists was something like 4 million before the pandemic. Completely unacceptable. So you can't blame the pandemic. You have to blame the people who are in charge. Who are the people in charge? The Conservative Party. They have been in charge for 12, almost 13 years now. When are people going to blame them instead of blaming doctors and blaming nurses, blaming the pandemic, blaming war? It's always about blaming somebody apart from where the book is supposed to end. The Prime Minister is ultimately responsible. Why can't he be blamed? Why can't the Health Secretary be expected to take responsibility for this? And as I said before, when it came to the pandemic, if you want to blame the pandemic, then why was the NHS not prepared? It was supposed to be prepared according to, well, there was a plan, Exercise Cygnus, which advised the government to prepare for a pandemic, and the Tories ignored it. So Nick Ferrari is our Fool of the Week. I'll see you next time for our next Fool of the Week.